So for Genshin Impacts, we haven't really been seeing any characters getting buffed for long years, and it almost just never happens. The last time that happens was when they buffed Zhongli just as soon as he was released. I don't even know if any of you remember this. It was like at the very beginning of the game. But yeah, they just released Zhongli in a very bad state, and players complained, and they just buffed him. And from then on, they just never buffs a single character ever again. And when you have a game running for like, what, 5 years right now, it's inevitable that you're gonna have some characters that are just gonna fall behind. Hoyo's strategy to deal with that was just simply releasing supports that can buff multiple characters at once, and that can bring the value of some characters. And that worked for a while, and you know, it increased the value a little bit for some characters and made them playable again. But again, with time, when you have a game running for 5 years, at some point some characters are just gonna fall behind in the dust. Right now, finally, we're starting to have buffs in the game. I'm not sure if that's going to be a permanent thing or not, but right now we're getting a buff to the mondstadt characters. A batch of them, 7 characters, are going to be getting some buffs. In this video, I'm just going to be going through them very quickly. I'm going to explain the buffs very quickly, say what implications they're going to have, and how good they're going to make the character. Before we continue that though, if you're trying to get Primo Gems or Genesis Crystals for you to get any of these characters or any character in Genshin Impact, I would recommend checking out ldshop.gg. It's a cheap, fast, and secure game top-up website where you can get different games currencies, including Genshin Impact, for 20% cheaper or more. Check it out in the link in the description or the pinned comment. Alright, so back to the character buffs. We're going to go through them very quickly. I'm going to tell you what each character got and how's that going to transform him. And we're going to start off with Venti. So all of these characters, they got like a magic buff where you can do a quest and then they become a magic character and their kit is going to be improved. It's just the same thing that's going to happen to Venti. With Venti, it's going to unlock a whole new Ascension passive, and it's basically just going to increase the duration of his elemental bursts and make her normal attacks during your elemental bursts just a Nemo, and they deal more damage. And when you use them, they're going to decrease the elemental burst cooldown and also increase the duration. They're also going to be dealing very good amounts of damage, which is super good. His constellations are also getting some buffs. C1 is getting just some extra damage too, extra arrows. C2 is the most important one. Your Anemo and physical resistance shred is going to go from 12% to 24%, and it's also going to reset the cooldown of your elemental skill, which is pretty good for particles. And then finally, C6 is just going to give you 100% crit damage to your damage against enemies that are caught inside of his elemental burst, on top of the existing resistance shred, and that's going to be pretty good. For Venti's changes in general, his support role is not really that changed, honestly. They did add the damage increase if characters trigger a swirl, but that's pretty much it. So I don't think it really changes his like support position that much, but it does give him a huge main DPS or sub DPS potential. It's going to encourage you more to use your normal attacks. They're going to be dealing very good damage when you use your elemental bursts. So Venti is going to be more of like a sub DPS, a little bit on field sub DPS right now, and he's going to be dealing very decent damage, honestly. So at least from the calculations I've seen, I haven't really done any personal ones, but from what I'm seeing, is going to be a very good decent sub DPS, and his support capabilities are going to be enhanced a little bit, which is super good. So yeah, Venti shifts more of like a pure Anemo like crowd control support to still that. It's going to increase his support capabilities a little bit, more damage bonus, a little bit resistance shred from the constellations, but mainly it's going to shift more to being like a sub DPS or even main DPS if you want to roll. That's pretty much just going to change with Venti, and obviously it's going to increase its value by quite a bit, and I do think it's going to be played in a lot of good teams again. The second character we have is going to be Klee. For Klee's changes, basically you just get a new passive, same thing as Venti, and it's just going to give you some stacks whenever Klee deals damage, and each stack is just going to increase your charge attacks damage, which is super good. That's basically just extra damage. Also, her normal attack sequence is going to be a little better. It's not going to reset, which is pretty good. You also get some extra additional sparks that are going to explode from your first passive, which is going to increase your damage. Her constellations are also going to be buffed. C2 now is going to decrease the enemy's defense by 23%, which is super good. More defense threat for Klee. And her other constellations are also mainly going to buff her too. For example, C1 is going to give you more attack. C4 is just going to give you more damage. C6 is basically just more damage. Overall, it's just more buffs, some attacks buffs, defense shred, and just extra damage from the constellations. And then from her kit, it's basically just more comfortable to play and just simply some extra damage. So yeah, I really like this buff for Klee. I'm not sure how or where that's going to put her in like the main DPS tier list. I don't think she's going to be top tier, that's for sure, but she's probably going to go up a tier 2, especially because she was lacking before. So right now, I think Klee is definitely more playable for sure, especially with other Mondstadt supports. It's going to be pretty good. Third character we have is going to be Albedo. Albedo was mainly just like a Geo sub DPS, but he didn't really do much at all recently. There's just many characters that can replace him, and he was basically useless except for like Geo teams. Right now, what they did to him is basically they just increase his damage really, and he can spawn his Sunfire Silver faster, and he can also be a very good support. So now you have 12% total party damage based on his defense maximum, and also 30% magic character damage, which are the characters that got buffed right now, scaling with his defense too. So now his elemental skill is going to buff your teammates based on Albedo's defense, which is going to make him pretty good. It's just extra damage and then more team buffs. His constellations are also going to get better, same as all of these characters. C1 now gives him more defense. C2 is basically just extra damage. It's 3 fatal blossoms. C4 is a plunge and jump buff, which is kind of weird, but we'll take that. And then C6 is basically more damage. But yeah, not really much change with Albedo. Honestly, his score is still the same. You can play him probably the same thing and build him almost the same thing. Maybe stack more defense a little bit because it's just going to be more rewarding. But in general, he just deals more damage, more team utility, and also the plunge and damage is going to be pretty good. So yeah, it's just more useful, I guess. I'm not sure if that's going to make him like the go-to option in a lot of teams, but we'll see soon. In general, he's just getting better for sure. So yeah. Another character we have is going to be Mona. Mona is basically just going to be increasing your vaporized damage by 10% right now from her new passive. She also gets a new passive. And basically that's it for like core kit changes. She's basically just going to be buffing vaporized damage. She's going to be pretty decent. She lacked a little bit before in vaporized teams, and now they're going to be making up for that a little bit by her being able to buff the vaporized damage. But she also got very good constellation buffs, which matters a lot more for her because she's a standard banner character. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to have her constellations more than the other characters' constellations. C1's going to be buffs of the characters off field. Previously it was buffing reactions. It's still doing the same basically, but now the buffs are going to be harder, 160% better. C2 now gives an extra 80% elemental mastery, and now C6 heavily amplifies the damage if the enemies are under her omen, and her C6 is just going to be doubling all of these omen triggered buffs, so it's basically just going to make it much better. But yeah, that's just definitely going to make her better in general. It's just some light buffs in my opinion. They turn her from more like a burst DPS into more like a team buff for a little bit, which is very good and appreciated. And they also enhance her burst DPS capabilities, so she still, you know, have her own character as always. But yeah, she's definitely gonna have some great teams in the future, and that's pretty good. The next character we have is just going to be Sucrose. Honestly, I was a little surprised. She's definitely not a character that needed a buff per se. Right now, she also gives your party some damage bonus. It's pretty small, it's not huge, but that's going to be an extra thing on top of all her previous buffs, which is pretty good. It's just an enhancement. She's going to be buffing your party members' normal attacks, charge attacks, and plunging attacks, elemental skill and bursts by around like 5%, which is, we'll take that. Also, her C6 is now going to be buffing the magic characters, which are these characters that got buffed, by an extra 8% damage bonus on top of the previous buff from C6. So Sucrose just got very small buffs. Honestly, I think buffs are the lightest, probably, at least in terms of like impact. She's still gonna be doing the same stuff. She's still just gonna be an elemental mastery buffer, but now she just gives you more damage bonus, I guess, which is appreciated, but it's not really necessary. It's not really gonna change much about her in general. But hey, again, we'll just take that. The next character we have is going to be Fischl. Basically, she's still going to have the same stuff. Before, she was mainly used as just like an electro sub DPS. Right now, she's also going to be turned into a buffer a little bit. She can give your team attack after doing the overloaded reaction, and after triggering electro charged, she can give your team 90 elemental mastery, which is going to be pretty good. So that's basically what changed about her kit. Now you're getting rewarded for playing her more in like overloaded teams or electro charged teams. She's going to be giving you more team-wide buffs. C6 is basically still the same. It's just going to double the previous buffs, and that's going to make her buffs pretty huge. It's basically just going to be like 44%, 45% attack bonus for your whole party, which is huge, or 180 elemental mastery, which is also pretty good. Her buffs are going to be pretty decent. Honestly, she's going to be probably played more in like overloaded or electro charged teams right now. She's now more of a specialist in these teams instead of just playing her as like a general electro, you know, sub DPS that just deals damage. Right now, she's more of a team buffer in these types of teams, and I do think she's going to be pretty good in this. So she's probably going to be like the best option in a lot of these teams. Overloaded or electro charged teams, she's going to be pretty good for Fischl. She's already good before, but it's a small buff that's going to make her super good in like some specific teams, which I like. And now for the final character who's getting a buff, which is gonna be Razor. I mean, Razor is just a main DPS, and he was mainly built as more of like a physical DPS before. At least I remember I used that at some point, but he was genuinely forgotten. Like, you'll never see anyone using Razor as a main DPS right now. So he's definitely one of the characters who needed a buff, and the buff was huge to Razor for sure. I think it's probably the second most talked about buff in all of these buffs after Venti. A lot of people were excited about his buffs, and now he's just definitely going to be a top tier DPS. I'm talking like A tier DPS from D tier. He was unusable, and now he's better than a lot of 5-star main DPSs. But yeah, for his buffs, basically it's just that his burst got enhanced. It's just going to deal more burst damage, basically simple, just burst damage increase, and then also it's going to restore some energy for Razor without you needing anything. So you're just going to have more uptime, which is going to be pretty good. His C6, which as a 4-star character, main DPS, it's fair if that you need C6 for him to be top tier, but for C6 Razor, your crit rate and crit damage are going to increase significantly right now, and that's going to be heavily appreciated for a simple main DPS like him, who heavily relies on just attack, crit rate, and crit damage, which is going to be super good. But yeah, in some of his like best teams, C6 Razor right now is just simply going to be an A tier DPS, even S tier. I think I've seen him crossing like 100k or something right now. Again, I didn't do any calculations for myself. Either way, I'm pretty sure his DPS potential is going to be increased, even if it's not that much, but he's definitely going to be a usable main DPS right now, and I'm happy to hear that because he was just completely forgotten for years right now, and I think he definitely needed that buff, and it's going to be heavily appreciated. So there's the characters who got buffs. I mean, that's a very good start, but honestly, there's still a lot of characters who definitely need a buff right now, like a lot of leeway characters, especially main DPSs that have been falling behind a lot. So it'll be heavily appreciated if more characters in the future got buffs, which I think hopefully is going to be the case. Tell me what you guys think of these buffs. Also tell me which characters you think need buffs in the future in Genshin. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys next video. Peace.